calibrated. And you know it needs calibrating because of the performance verification testing that you do during PM, preventative maintenance. You test pressures. You test the pressure at 6 psi and 10 psi, and that's pounds per square inch. You also test if it detects air in line, and if it does not detect air in line, then you need to calibrate the air sensors. So these pots on the side of the pump here are for calibrating your distal and your proximal pressure. So the first thing you do is you plug the power cable from the mechanism calibration fixture onto the pump. And you do that before you plug in the mechanism calibration device. Otherwise, you blow its power supply. Then you connect the data cable to the side of the mechanism and make sure it's properly seated on the mechanism calibration device. Okay, now we can plug in our cal fixture, and we'll get a menu on the front of the unit that lets us see the various options we're going to be working with. First, we're going to calibrate the pressure, and then we're going to calibrate the air. So pressure is number 4, so we press 4. And it says press start key to initiate test. We hear the mech initialize, and it tells us to use the 0 psi fixture. So we have these two metal cassettes. One is calibrated for 0 psi, and the other is calibrated for 10 psi. We open the door in the mechanism and insert the fixture. Now, the first thing we need to do is set our 0, and it shows us that we have 0.020 to 0.080 for the distal pressure. And so this pot on the left-hand side is for distal. And you see as we turn this counterclockwise, the voltage is going down. And there we have 0.6, which is between 0.02 and 0.08. Now we set our proximal 0 with the other potentiometer. If you go too far, you just have to go back the other direction. Now the pot is very sensitive, so you have to make very small adjustments. Okay, so we have both of these values in between where we need them to be, and we click Next. Now it's asking us for the 10 psi fixture. Now, usually this doesn't need adjusting if you did a good job on the 0. So 0.796 is between 0.685 and 0.885. That's good. And 0.576 is between 0.535 and 0.965. So all we need to do is hit Next. Now we set the final value for 0. And we need to be between 0.620 and 0.680. It's kind of hard to get. Okay, so we got the distal. Now we adjust the proximal to be between 1.190 and 1.250. And there we go. So we set that. Now the second 10 psi value simply needs to be recorded, so we don't calibrate anything and we click set. Now it asks us to open the cassette door, and if we've done a good job calibrating the mech, this value will be less than this value. And we can click set, done, back, and then we verify it with the number 6. And it says mechanism is calibrated. And we click back. Now to calibrate the air, we go to menu number 5, press start key to initiate test, empty cassette. This value needs to be below 0.097. If it's not, we need to replace this board. But that value is, so we hit set. And now we take a cassette filled with fluid, and I'm just going to pump the air out of it because it's laying on its side. Place the cassette in the door and close. And I can tell we still have air in there. This cassette is not working because this value of 0.014 isn't changing. So I don't know if the cassette is bad. But these two pots right here are used to calibrate the distal air and the proximal air. And this value needs to be between 1400 and 1500. So I'm going to adjust the one that will adjust, the distal, up to 1452. we're going to be able to calibrate the proximal air. Yeah, the proximal air we can't calibrate with this cassette. But this pot right next to it, right here, is used for the proximal air. And we would turn that, and we would eventually get to between 1400 and 1500 on proximal. We hit set, and it says malfunction, proximal fluid too low. That's because we couldn't calibrate that. So the fixture itself tells you whether you successfully calibrated the device or you did not. If we had, we would hit back and hit 6 to verify. But here we see air does not show as done because we were not able to calibrate it with this cassette. We unplug this. I'm going to put a little more fluid in this and see if we can overcome that problem.